what I'm talking about is a research project that we are currently doing, and a research project, on the other hand, that we are going to undertake from 2011 on for another 3 years. So the first one that is currently ongoing is a feasibility study that deals with, I go back to this, recruitment and induction in selected European countries. So what do employers do in terms of recruitment, and how do they induct young people on the labor market into the structure of their work and into the culture of work, you could say. We've heard the term induction earlier this morning, so that's the point of this research project. And then I'm going to tell you something about the perspectives and challenges that we experience within the feasibility study, as well as within this full study that we are planning to carry out. I will give you a very short introduction on what BIBB is. BIBB is almost, you could say, a governmental institution. It's not a real governmental institution. We are constituted because of the fact that the law for the federal law of vocational education and training says that there should be an institution that does research, development, and consultancy in vocational education and training. And we have a big advisory structure. It's more like, it's not only an advisory structure, it's really like a board that has quite some heavy competences also. And this board consists out of tripartite kind of coalition of social partners, as well as government. In terms of government, it's education as well as the business kind of sphere. And we are responsible for all the training regulations. As you might know, we have over 365 occupations in Germany. Probably that's too much. We are working on this. And so all those 365 training regulations for initial vocational education and training, as well as some training regulations for continuing vocational education and training, are being made by BIBB. They are not decided by us, they are decided by the board and the respective ministry, but they are prepared by people from BIBB. And then we also do research and consulting in terms of how do you actually put those training regulations in place, or what should you do in order to have good trainers in your company, and that kind of work. And we do research projects that deal mainly with the German vocational education setting, but we are also doing some comparative research, and that's where I'm working in. So there's the full circle, so to speak. I'm talking first about the conceptual background of the research projects, the two. We are specifically interested in the relation between more experience-based acquired knowledge on the one hand, and knowledge that is acquired in school-based settings. And that's not only something that is valid or interesting, I think, for the famous dual system, but that's something that you can find all over the world, the interest into this. And we apply an international comparative perspective, of course, because we want to know how we do with our dual vocational education and training system, as opposed to other forms of realizing this kind of balance or relation. But I have also to introduce a but. We are not doing that, which would make a lot of sense in terms of asking individuals how they learn certain things, but we are asking employers. And that's just a decision that we made at the very beginning of this project, and it makes a lot of sense to do this. But in order to get a full picture, you probably would need to look at employees as well as employers. What we think is very important, and that deals with our mission as well, is that we look at the role of job demands and characteristics for professional and vocational competences. How do you develop competence, and what do employers do in order to support their staff to develop competence? You can ask very general questions about that, but finally you will find, and that comes close to what we heard this morning, that you need a certain level of disaggregation to make judgments that are valid for certain occupational sectors and so on. So it's not the question if someone is graduate level or has a vocational diploma, but the question is what can he or she actually do, you know? So, and that's important, what we find already, that employers seem to see that in the same direction. And the questions that we have and that we try to address with this project are also rooted into, or can be rooted into, two trends that we observe. On the one hand, you have a strong academization trend all over the world. People want to have graduate level degrees and so on. But on the other hand, you find that vocational systems, and not only vocational education system, but educational systems, are increasingly vocationalizing the content of what they are providing. So it's it's quite a divergent trend, and we are interested in looking at this trend and what that means for employers' recruitment decisions, and also for what happens after recruitment, what I've called here HRD. But we are specifically looking at the first 3 to 5 years of employment. Our goal is to make an empirical contribution to the discussions that I've just mentioned, and to apply a survey perspective, which is quite new, because what you find on this relationship between recruitment, induction, HRD, and so on is often case studies, but you, in very seldom cases, find a real large number-based survey perspective. So another goal, of course, is to profile, to get a closer picture and a more accurate picture about the role of work-based learning in companies, and to shed light on the question also what different educational patterns that you find in education and training systems mean for the whole issue of recruitment and work-based learning. So that's the goals that we pursue. If you look at the state of research, you find that often, especially this interface, the interface between education and entering the firm, as well as the first years in the firm in terms of learning in the firm, are more or less a black box. And often if you find findings about that, then this is not associated to the to the qualification demands or the job characteristics that you find. For example, we carried out a research workshop at the beginning of this feasibility study that is going to be finished at the end of the year with people from labor economics and then school to work transition and research and so on. And they all shared this interest into, let's say, the first years in the firm, but they said there's not a lot of literature or research projects that have been carried out on this, especially not in an international comparative perspective. And we think that it is very important to do this kind of research in an occupational specific perspective. This, on the one hand, makes the validity of the research that we are doing, it narrows it down to certain occupational sectors, or probably it's also in some terms representative for certain technical areas or so. You will see that later on. But on the other hand, it gives you a more precise picture than the research that has already been carried out. And we can connect with the overall theme to 2 projects that are carried out by the section I'm working in. There's this feasibility study, and there's also another study that we are carrying out at the moment, which is a comparison of recruitment strategies on the intermediate level qualification between Switzerland, Germany, and the UK, interestingly, in the banking sector, for example. That's being carried out by a colleague of mine. And those 2 things will feed into a project that we are going to do from next year on. I'm unfortunately not in the position that I can give you the final results of our feasibility study, which we hoped to do when we were writing the abstract. You all know this problem. But I can give you insights into what we are doing. And at the moment, we are in the field with the standardized questionnaire that we've been preparing in this project.